What happens when a black mechanic helps a stranger on the road, only to spot a photo of his missing sister on the man's dashboard? What started with a flat tire spiraled into a revelation that shook the entire country. On the stretch of asphalt between Atlanta and Lawrenceville, under a July sun so fierce it could melt resolve and willpower, Jamal Edwards was heading home, his overalls still smelling of grease, gasoline, and sweat, like the bedrock foundation of a man who'd just spent 3 days working for free in his church's auto shop, restoring broken-down cars for single mothers with broken-down lives. He could have been home by now, armchair and lemonade next to his fingerless air conditioner, phone switched off so he didn't hear another request for help. But fate, ever the capricious playwright in stories about black men in this world, decided, not today, brother. Today you're not getting off easy. He'd cleared half the distance when the white Camry came into view, hood popped open like a mouth frozen in a silent scream of panic. Next to it stood a man who looked like privilege wrapped in a dress shirt, white hair slicked back, post-shave smooth in a shirt you could guarantee cost more than Jamal's paycheck for the week, fiddling with his iPhone like it was a magic lamp that had suddenly worked better in the middle of Georgia asphalt so hot even the devil might rethink his job assignment. For a heartbeat, Jamal thought about driving past, because he knew that sometimes kindness is a ticket to trouble, but conscience, that stubborn old trait passed down from his mama, who'd planted seeds of humility in her children with every meal she cooked, spoke up. Son, don't be no bystander. He gave a deep breath, hit the brake, stepped out of his truck and walked forward, carrying decades of dignity and sweat in his wide hands. Everything okay, sir? He asked, voice steady, neutral, giving nothing away. Tires flat, grumbled the man without looking up. No spare I can find. No service. Bad timing. Gotcha, Jamal thought, lifting the trunk lid like he owned the thing. Another white guy stranded, another sad human moment. But black, man helping black, safe, black, man helping white, potential threat. He didn't voice it. He twisted the lug wrench. He dipped into his toolbox, pulled out the jack, and got to work without arrogance, without pity, just raw muscle and experience. 10 minutes later, tire swapped, bolts tight, oily rag tucked neatly in his back pocket. That's when the man looked at him, not with gratitude, but with a curious mix of surprise and suspicion, like he was running some mental algorithm. Why is this not what I expected? Thanks, the man finally said, voice clipped, eyes flitting away like daylight made him uncomfortable. I'd have messed that up. Yeah, Jamal said, wiping his sleeve. Sure. He turned, ready to leave, but then something caught his eye, something out of place on the passenger seat. Between a charging cable, a stack of papers, and a half-empty water bottle jammed in the cup holder was a photograph. Old, worn at the edges, and familiar. So familiar it felt like a punch to the gut. Hey, Jamal said slowly, leaning close to the window. Where'd you get this photo? The man stiffened instantly. His eyes narrowed, his posture changed. Jamal noticed the shift before the man even moved, like a storm cloud that shows up before the thunder. That's not your business, he said, slapping his hand down so quickly Jamal jumped a bit. This is a picture of my sister, Amara Edwards. She's been missing for 8 years. Where did you get this? Jamal's voice turned ice sharp. The man's face crumpled, guilt and panic tugging at his features. Must be a mistake. Don't know what you're talking about. Just drive off. Jamal shook his head, feeling his pulse spike. Mistake? My sister's been gone since she was 25, and now I see her face in your car. That's not a damn accident. The man's gaze flicked to the phone in his pocket, and within seconds he was hitting the screen. Jamal recognized the urgency of dialing 911 before the man even spoke. Yes, dispatch? I've got, someone here threatening me. He's aggressive. Black male, big guy, that kind of dangerous. The phone call was the final twist, that moment when Jamal realized he hadn't stumbled into a random roadside situation. No, he had tugged at a frayed thread that ran through something darker, a whole tapestry of lies, power, and manipulation masked by clean suits and polished foundations. Jamal's hand tightened on the tire iron behind him. He turned in one swift motion, locking eyes with the man. "You got 5 seconds to tell me where she is," he said coolly, "or I'll find the cops myself. And trust me, you don't want that press on you." But the man kept talking, louder now, more frantic, painting a scene where Jamal was the aggressor, hostile, menacing, threatening, a statistic he wanted to manufacture around himself. Jamal paused. He slid inside his truck, hands cramping around the wheel until the knuckles turned chalk white. He jammed down the camera app, snapped a photo of the license plate, tapped out the GPS coordinates, hit record on the dash cam. Then he threw the truck into gear and peeled off, not heading for home. Hell no, lemonade could wait. He was driving straight to see Jerry, his old friend working news down in Decatur. 2 turns later, Jamal pulled up outside the Channel 11 station. The buzz of prospects and lights splashed across the lot. Inside, Jerry popped around the corner, scrambling toward him. "Man, what happened? You look like a war zone." Jamal held his phone up. "Look at that photo. That's her. That's my sister." He flicked through the gallery. Name's John Malone, Big Deal CEO, Prime Group, philanthropy poster boy, sits on nonprofit boards, has speeches about community engagement. Jerry whistled low. And this? Jamal chirped brighter. "I found a psychiatric evaluation, Amara Edwards, marked potential risk to funder's reputation. He's carrying it around in his car." Jamal's laugh was jagged with irony. "Can you picture it? The man of the year, riding around with mental health docs for women he never met?" Jerry stared, his face drained. "Damn!" Jamal let it hang in the air. "Yeah, damn." The next morning back at his shop, Jamal was wiping down an engine when a sleek black sedan rolled up, tinted windows and no charm. 2 men stepped out. No smiles, no hesitation, just ice-cold suits. One pushed a card forward. "Prime Group's legal." Their tone was polite, but the undercurrent was clear. "Do what we say, or else." Jamal leaned over the hood of his truck, arms crossed. "Okay then, guys. What's message? You saying I should drop this? I fixed your boss's flat tire, got sarcasm instead. Now you send threats my way to keep me quiet? For my sister's face in his car?" They stood silent. The other one finally hissed. "We recommend you cease inquiry into Amara Edwards, for your own good." Jamal's grin was cold. "Consequences? You think I'm scared of your lawyers? Hell, I'm going to Sandbridge tomorrow, and I'm bringing cameras, lights, lawyers." They exchanged glances, then squeezed in one last warning. "You've been advised." That night, Jamal didn't sleep. The ceiling fan spun overhead, white noise like a mocking applause. He replayed Amara's laughter, her nimble fingers running over French notes, her dreams of helping kids, and then her silence, her absence. No text, no call, just cold disappearance. Then this, her face in a millionaire's car, the evaluation, the threats. The man had phoned the cops as if Jamal was a threat for saving him. Nice. He lay awake writing in his mind what he'd tell Sandbridge. He imagined turning those threats into headlines. He pictured the viral video at Channel 11, rattling every big supposed niceness in Georgia. Because this wasn't just about finding his sister. It was about breaking a cycle, about showing the world that Black voices matter, that refusing to go silent is a revolutionary act in itself. So he stood, walked to his desk, drafted the message to Jerry. "Get ready for this. We're going deep." And then he fell into a fitful sleep, mind spinning with plans and pitches and righteous heat. That's where the road stops for now. What comes next? Believe me, you're not going to want to miss how it unfolds. The next day, Jamal Edwards didn't pull up to the Sandbridge clinic like a grieving brother or some worried family member hoping for a kind explanation. He rolled in like a man who was done playing nice, like someone who had buried the benefit of the doubt and come to dig up the truth instead. Sandbridge looked exactly like the kind of place that hid dirt beneath manicured perfection. Glass walls, flawless landscaping, a reception desk as sterile and polished as a courtroom. Everything screamed, "Trust us," but the air smelled too clean, like it had been scrubbed to hide something rotten underneath. It was the kind of atmosphere that whispered, "Stay in your lane. If you're not white and wealthy, don't get comfortable." He walked in with his boots clicking on the marble floor and didn't wait for small talk. "I need information on Amara Edwards," he said, his tone steady but solid enough to make the air in the room shift. "A patient you might be keeping under lock and key in your basement." "I'm sorry." The receptionist blinked like he had just asked if this was the Death Star and whether Darth Vader had room for one more prisoner. "You heard me. Let's just skip the performance. I can bring in the media, a lawyer, and every social network app I got on my phone. Her name is Edwards, Amara. Look it up." "There's no such patient in our system." "Of course not," he snapped back. "And I bet you don't have surveillance cameras either, like the one that saw a woman with her face walking into this very building yesterday." He dropped a photo of Amara on the counter. "You want me to show you the exact angle? I've got it right here." The woman's face paled. Her fingers froze mid-keystroke. "Just give me a minute," she whispered. 15 minutes later, a man walked out. Gray suit, crisp tie, haircut sharp enough to cut through the truth. The kind of man who didn't introduce himself because his job was to erase problems, not greet them. He asked Jamal to follow him into a private office where everything from the leather chairs to the cold smile on his face screamed corporate damage control. "Mr. Edwards," he began, all syrupy calm, "I understand you're concerned." "You don't understand a damn thing," Jamal said, sitting down hard in the chair. "And trust me, concern's not even close to where I'm at. I want to know why my sister's photo is sitting in your donor's car like a keepsake. I want to know why she's listed in your records under a restricted access clause for the protection of someone's reputation. And I want to know, right now, where she is." The man cleared his throat, folded his hands. "That documentation was obtained through illegal means." "Oh, look at you," Jamal said with a dry laugh. "Now you care about the law. That's rich." The man's expression tightened. And then came the line that made Jamal's gut twist like someone had shoved ice down his spine. "Your sister was admitted voluntarily. She was diagnosed with a personality disorder. We have her signed consent." Jamal leaned forward, voice low but cutting. "You expect me to believe my sister, who never had a clinical diagnosis in her life, just signed herself into a place like this? No questions asked? And none of y'all blinked when she stayed locked away for 8 years? Come on, man." "I'm sorry, Mr. Edwards, but we're not authorized to disclose patient medical history." "You've got 24 hours, Jamal said, rising from his seat. "That's all. 24 hours to show me that she's alive, healthy, and not buried under some paperwork scandal. After that, I bring everything. News, lawyers, cameras, public fury. I'll burn your polished little empire to the ground. And believe me, the crowd's ready." Back at home, Jamal didn't even sit down. He opened his laptop, recorded a video, and kept it simple. A photo of Amara, the story of the man he helped on the highway, the name John Malone, and the Sandbridge logo. No theatrics, no tears. Just facts, delivered with the kind of voice that makes people lean in and stay there. By morning, the video had over 1.2 million views. His phone lit up with calls from reporters, activists, bloggers, even his high school teacher, who once thought the internet was just for cat pictures. Comments flooded in: rage, grief, support. "They took your sister and thought you'd stay quiet," one woman wrote. "They forgot we learned how to fight back." The day after, a black Tesla pulled up outside Jamal's shop. The same two men from before stepped out, but this time they brought backup. A third man in federal uniform with an FBI badge clipped to his jacket stood between them like the conscience they never had. "Mr. Edwards," the agent said, "we'd like a word." "Oh, I'd love to have a word," Jamal replied, folding his arms across his chest. "Start with this. How many black women are currently listed in private clinics under no family contact clauses?" "Do you have evidence?" the agent asked. Jamal handed over a file, freshly printed from a journalist friend who'd pulled strings overnight. Names, faces, admission dates, diagnoses, all of them black women, all of them listed as restricted contact for the safety or reputation of institutional sponsors. The agent's face darkened. This shouldn't be happening." "Well, it is," Jamal said, leaning in. "And if your people don't fix it, I will. I'll start with national news. I'll move on to the courts. And then I'll make sure every grieving mother out there knows who kept them apart from their daughters. 3 days later, Sandbridge issued a bland press release, something about internal review and restructuring. Translation, damage control. But Jamal wasn't buying the rebranding. He called in the Black Legal Coalition, a nonprofit of civil rights attorneys who'd been waiting for a case like this to explode. And explode it did. Then came the final nail. Angela Brent, an investigative reporter with a reputation for exposing the secrets that keep powerful people sleeping soundly, found an old case file. 8 years ago, Amara had filed complaints against the Prime Group for racial discrimination. The complaint was dismissed quietly, but now, with the recent findings, it connected directly back to John Malone and Sandbridge. The next day, someone came to Jamal again, this time not in suits, not with threats, but as a representative from the clinic. "We're prepared to allow you access to the patient," the man said, his voice thick with PR polish, "provided you—" "No," Jamal said, cutting him off. "No conditions, no clauses. I see her, or I bring CNN and a 60-year-old grandma who runs a viral account on racial justice in medicine." They led him through a side entrance into a wing of the clinic that felt colder than the rest. Glass walls, surveillance cameras, sterile silence. Behind one of those doors stood a woman, thin, weary, eyes tired, but still burning with life. It was Amara. She stepped forward, cautiously at first, then faster. "Jamal?" she whispered like the word itself might break. He stood there, breath caught in his throat, fists clenched to keep from collapsing. "I found you," he said. She came into his arms, and for a moment there was no sound but the beating of two hearts reunited. He hadn't just found his sister. He had reclaimed a part of himself lost in years of silence and grief. This is it, the moment you were waiting for. But trust, what happens next will flip the entire story on its head. Stick around and watch Jamal light up the truth. The silence between Jamal and Amara as they walked toward his truck wasn't the kind you fill with nervous glances or trembling hands. No, this silence was heavier, colder. It rang like a bell forged from fury. Years of forced silence, betrayal in white coats, and the kind of institutional lies that rot the bones of a whole system. Amara didn't ask questions. She didn't need to. Her hands stayed locked around Jamal's like it was the only real thing she had left in the world. And maybe it was. She wasn't scared of being taken again. She was scared he'd vanish like everything else that once gave her hope. But Jamal had no plans to disappear. Now it was someone else's turn to vanish. The people who had buried her behind euphemisms like treatment and voluntary care. "Are we going to the police?" she asked, barely above a whisper. "No," Jamal said flatly, his jaw tight. "Police are the same ones that stood behind me, breathing down my neck when I asked for help. We're going to the news." And 6 hours later, they were live. Amara wasn't sitting in that studio like a victim. She sat like a survivor on fire. Her eyes didn't dart. Her voice didn't shake. She told the truth the way people swing sledgehammers. Slow, deliberate, and aimed right at the walls built to keep voices like hers locked out. She spoke about how the Prime Group sued her for defamation when she accused them of racial discrimination, how they painted her unstable through friendly psychiatrists, how one morning 8 years ago, John Malone had walked into her hospital room, smiling the way only men with unchecked power can smile, like executioners hiding behind clipboards. "They didn't treat me," she said into the camera. "They contained me, because I wouldn't stay quiet." The studio fell still, and on the other side of those screens, millions of people froze too. And what did John Malone do? Oh, he reached for the same dusty playbook. Attorneys, press statements, PR gloss. His team released a message talking about deep regrets and commitment to transparency moving forward. But America wasn't buying scripted remorse anymore. Not after watching Amara dust off 8 years of silence and shame and throw it on live television like kindling. "He stole my youth," Amara told a crowd of thousands at a rally in Atlanta. "Now he wants to file it under misunderstanding. This wasn't a mistake. This was a crime." People clapped until their hands ached. Jamal stood beside her, arms crossed, watching his sister, the little girl who once sang off-key on the porch of their childhood home, now breaking down an empire brick by brick. And then the fire started. Malone filed lawsuits, not just one. He hit Amara, Jamal, and the news station with defamation claims. He was betting on the old trick, fear. He thought a black woman who had just escaped hell would be too afraid to walk back into it through the courtroom doors. What he didn't know was this. Amara had left her fear inside Sandbridge, buried under the weight of 8 years of silence. Now all she carried was purpose. The trial dragged on for 3 months. The courtroom was a theater of contrast. On one side, Malone in his tailored suits, surrounded by lawyers, a halo of privilege and strategy. On the other, Amara in a sharp gray suit, hair pulled back, eyes steady, voice crisp like fall air. The turning point? A simple question. "Mr. Malone," the defense attorney asked, "can you explain why a framed photo of a woman you claim never to have met was found in your car, next to family pictures?" I don't know," Malone stammered. "It could have been planted?" "Planted," the attorney echoed. "A custom-printed photograph? On the same paper used exclusively in your private office printer?" Malone looked at his lawyers, but no one had an answer. The courtroom buzzed with a low hum of disbelief. Then Amara took the stand. No tears, no drama, just facts. Cold, hard, painful facts. "I wasn't fed properly for the first 3 months," she said. "I was injected with medications without explanation. My phone was taken. I wrote letters. They never reached anyone. I was told I was dangerous. Too loud." "What did you say in response?" the judge asked. "I told them, if I'm dangerous, it's because you fear the truth." Then it was Jamal's turn. He didn't begin with accusations. He told a story. "I stopped to help a man with a flat tire, didn't ask for money, just did what was right. And in return, I saw my missing sister's photo in his car. The man didn't thank me. He called the cops. Because to him, I wasn't a mechanic. I was a threat. That's the system we're in. A system where skin color turns a helping hand into a police report." "This isn't about damages," he said. "This is about exposure. About a system that lets black women disappear while the world scrolls past like nothing happened. Until someone lights a match." The trial continued, but outside the courtroom, the verdict had already landed. The Prime Group lost donors. Sandbridge was shut down. Criminal investigations were opened. Families demanded access to loved ones. And horrifyingly, some patients were still missing. But Amara didn't stop. She became a voice, not for pity, but for power. Universities invited her to speak. Conferences requested her insight. She didn't show up as a survivor asking for hugs. She stood before packed halls and gave people the blueprint for recognizing the system and burning it down from the inside. "I survived," she'd say, "but I'm not here for applause. I'm here to make sure no one else disappears." And Jamal? He went back to the shop, rebuilt engines, laughed with customers. But he was different now. When someone thanked him for fixing their car, he'd always lock eyes and say, "Just remember who helped you. I'm not just a mechanic, I'm a brother. And if you touch mine, I will find you, no matter what system you hide behind." One evening, months later, Jamal and Amara sat on the porch of their childhood home. The grill smoked, neighbors sipped tea, and somewhere down the block, children laughed like tomorrow was guaranteed. "You think it's over?" Amara asked. "Over?" Jamal chuckled. "Girl, we just got started." This wasn't just a victory, it was a reckoning. In a world where darkness is the rule, one brother dared to bring the light, and his sister turned that light into a torch.